Welcome to Making Metrc Easy, presented by Outlaw Technology. I'm Hans Dietrich.
And I'm Bree Oaxaca. And each week we speak with companies in the trenches of the seed to sale process.
Today on our show, we're very excited to have Meagan Zaffaroni, Director of Compliance at gLeaf, a multi-state operator, and Outlaw's very first client. We also have Dave Eagleson, CEO and founder of Outlaw, who spent a lot of time at gLeaf getting their input and feedback as we developed our systems. So welcome, Meagan. As I just said, we're very, very happy to have you here. And if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in this industry? How long have you been in cannabis?
Thanks for having me. Started with gLeaf almost 6 years ago. It will be 6 years in September. I actually was headhunted by the two owners, Kevin and Phil, long before they got their license in order for them to use my name on their application. So they talked to me back in, I believe it was 2014, 2015. So I've been going back and forth with them since then, and I was one of their first hires. So I have been here since day one in Maryland, and it's been great so far.
Had you been in the cannabis industry prior to that?
No, actually, I worked for a local municipality in Maryland as their horticulturalist. So I did all their landscaping work.
Awesome. So Meagan, how did you get to know us at Outlaw? How did you meet Dave?
If I remember correctly, I believe Dave either emailed or ended up calling us and got a hold of me. And I then took his information to our general manager that we had at the time to say, hey, this technology might be helpful. These guys seem like they're, they know what they're doing, that they're going to build us tools that will really help us with inventory and harvesting and keeping kind of data aligned. And I think we should check them out. And it went from there.
Yeah, Megan's correct. It basically is one of those situations where, just a little background on Outlaw for those of you who don't know. When I started the company in late 2018 or early 2019, it was at the behest of Metrc, of all places. The CEO of Metrc, currently the chairman, Jeff Wells, frustrated that no one was taking advantage of the RFID tags being put on plants, packages, and was wondering who was going to do it, and kind of implored me to do it, which is kind of how we got started. So how it got to Meagan is I started reaching out, because I'm based in Maryland, to Maryland cultivators, and I was lucky enough to come face-to-face with Meagan, and she's been a godsend ever since.
And Meagan, you were saying how you thought this might be helpful. I know that Dave, when he came to you, he probably explained how RFID worked, but what were your biggest challenges, pain points that you were having just working with the Metrc tags without any kind of tools to actually read the RFID inlays that are inside all of the Metrc tags?
Yeah, so it was a very labor-intensive process before we got Outlaw into the building. We basically had to do everything the old-fashioned way with pen and paper. So, for example, when we harvested our rooms of 800 to 1,000 plants, we were individually writing down the last active digits of the Metrc tag and then recording the weight on lists of paper. And then after we had all the plants pulled down, I then had the wonderful job of inputting each one of those tags, each one of those lines of data individually into Metrc. So we literally spent hours on top of a full harvest day inputting the Metrc data, because that was the only way we had to do it. Same with things like plant moves or inventories. When we moved plants, we would have to write the tags down or make sure, double and triple check that we actually moved what we were supposed to move and we didn't get any stragglers or we didn't miss any. And then for inventories, I would spend in one of our largest rooms holds, at the time it held up to 1,100 plants. And I would go in there and it would take me a minimum of a half a day just to inventory the room, because I was touching every Metrc tag, reading the tag number and highlighting it on the inventory list. in order to ensure that the plant was in the room it was supposed to be in. So it was hours and hours of manpower and labor that was just killing us.
Now that you guys have the Outlaw tools, how long would you say it takes you on average to, complete your harvest, get that data into Metrc, and then do those same sorts of room audits?
Yeah, so harvest it's basically recording the data real time. We're scanning the plant tag and it's recording the weight since the harvest tablet is connected to our scale. So there's really no added time to our harvest. So if our harvest day is on Wednesday and we plan on harvesting from 7 a.m. to 5 in the afternoon, we know that by the time 5 o'clock rolls around, all the plants have been documented. All we need to do is double check them in the Outlaw backend to make sure that, everything came through correctly. And as long as that happens, it's a click of a button and boom, it's in Metrc. So compared to spending 3-4 hours inputting individual weights, that's a large savings of time. And with audits, we went from that room that I gave the example of that can hold up to 1,100 plants at that time. It was taking me at least a half a day. So you're talking 4 hours plus to inventory that room. Whereas now my team can go downstairs in our facility to that room and inventory it in probably less than 15 minutes.
Wow. And Dave, when you first went to gLeaf and met with Meagan, what were your first thoughts? What did you see that you knew we could do and help them with immediately? And which technology did you then decide needed to be developed first?
In fairness, I didn't know the cannabis industry at all. Obviously, I have the expertise in the RFID side of the business, so I knew the tags were on the plants, and I knew generally how it works. So Meagan was kind enough to kind of walk me through how things went from room to room, from veg to flower, obviously the harvest process, and then post-production. So what was helpful is we had a willing partner that's saying we need help. So when Meagan was telling me about the 4 and 5 hours of after harvest typing that she did, I felt bad for her. Second, I felt like I should fix this. So we started building it out. Our CTO, Justin, and I really worked heavily with Meagan's team. Look, we realized coming in, we weren't the cannabis experts. Meagan and her team were. So I think the value is having partners and really learning from those that deal with the day-to-day was critical. So we would come back and say, what do you think of this? No, I don't like that, Dave. And then we would come back again and again. But what we ended up doing is really honing in on something that they could use very effectively and more importantly, train their team. So if Stevie was out, there was, the first groups that were in there, it changes obviously. So we need to make sure the tools we had would work well. But really where gLeaf's been invaluable is just that feedback. And we've taken that not only for the harvest, but they've also helped on our Desperado handhelds for the plant side. And we've also worked with them on our Maverick dispensary. So gLeaf has been one of those touchstones for us that is just invaluable.
And about how long did you actually spend in development and getting their feedback until Outlaw released its first system?
I would say from beginning to end, we'll just say Meagan, probably about 3 months or so. So we were back and forth quite a bit. We would come and see Meagan and their GM at the time, Jim, and we'd get input and then disappear for a period of time while we worked on what it should work, how it should work. So once we got it going, like I said, I think that we learned early on that what you do is you build a system, have the customer like Meagan, gLeaf test it multiple times. So we made sure that multiple harvests has occurred. So that way, when we finally, quote unquote, launched it to others, which we did, obviously, that we knew things were going to be rock solid.
So Meagan, if you had to go back in time and enter this industry again, would you be willing to do it without automation tools like you currently have?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say no, only because I know what they can do now. So being a multi-state operator, we do have operations that we aren't able to use Outlaw in them. And let's just say my staff up there is very jealous of the other locations that do have Outlaw and can use, can leverage their technology.
Yeah, and I would say to add on to that, I think the key thing is, and it's funny, we've heard from other customers that use our tool sets. Some have said that, Meagan, whether it's like, if I didn't have this, I wouldn't do this again. I wouldn't jump into this. So I think the nice thing about it is hopefully we're fitting that need of just that data capture. More importantly, though, is like I said, we've been looking at, and back to gLeaf, they've been helpful as we started developing our dispensary solution, which is really a newer offering. And the intent there was, again, inventory becoming critical. And now that Maryland's adult use, yay, that's even getting more pronounced and more of a challenge for these folks. So, I think with customers like gLeaf, we Outlaw have been able to take advantage of their knowledge, but more importantly, having them tell us specifically what the problem points are, because those that do day in and day out the work that Meagan and the team does are by far the best person for us to learn from and understand what we need to build.
Yeah, and to jump in off of that too, it's been a great relationship between gLeaf and Outlaw in developing these tools, because we've always kept the lines of communication open of, if the gLeaf staff was using, say, the Harvest tablet, and, they see this button isn't working or that function isn't really necessary, we'd rather have this. Outlaw's been very willing to, adjust things to work for the cannabis industry rather than, just kind of making a generic tool that can hopefully do most of the things you want, but isn't going to really help drastically, because cannabis is so different than other industries or other manufacturing.
Yeah, and honestly, Meagan, just chiming off that is, I think one of the big things that I do recall from our history together, it's been long and wonderful, by the way, but the one thing was Virginia. So when Virginia, you guys moved forward on Virginia with a license, obviously it was a non-Metrc state, and I know this is a Metrc focus, but it was almost challenging for both of us to figure out, how do we track things? How do we manage these things effectively? So in partnership with, say, Dutchie at the time, I think we were able to accomplish it, which was one of those curveballs, which is, hey, Dave, can the Outlaw team figure this out for us? So, that was an interesting one for us, and I think it's proven to be successful.
It is a much-loved tool in Virginia as well.
Yeah, in fact, Bree's been down there several times. So, yeah, I bring that up because, look, I think this industry is evolving quickly. We all know that at times we'll get changes from the state. Meagan might get something saying, hey, in Ohio, we need to do this, or Maryland, that. Just like the recent Maryland launch, there were some changes that occur, and, we all have to be adaptable. We have to be ready to make these changes. And fortunately, I think we've tried our best to be there for our customers, because at the end of the day, this is not static. This industry changes, if not monthly, sometimes weekly. It's been an interesting ride.
gLeaf has been a fantastic partner in this, because you do get back to us. We don't have our own grow. We don't have our own processing facility. We don't have dispensaries. So we rely on your input, and we try to make the changes that we can do across the board that'll work everywhere we are, which is basically coast to coast. Speaking of which, you're the compliance director for all of gLeaf, correct, Meagan?
Yeah.
So how does the process or the compliance rules, obviously in Metrc states, they're very similar, but do most places work pretty much the same way from a compliance perspective?
I would say that they do. Most states, they have some sort of, they either have a state contracted seed to sale system, or they require you to use some sort of seed to sale system, even if it's not contracted by the state. So they are always heavily focused on ensuring that you're tracking your inventory. They want to see that you're, keeping up with moving things around of, if a package moves from your lab processing area to your vault, it is also moving electronically, not just physically. So they want to make sure that that's happening, and that you're staying on top of your inventory. So there's little nuances in every state, but generally speaking, they are very, very on top of inventory. They're very on top of making sure the product is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, one other question I was going to ask you, and that was a good one, Hans, but I'm curious, now that you have Metrc states and non-Metrc states, what's your thought? Again, the podcast is calling Metrc, Making Metrc Easy. The question I have is, what is your thoughts on Metrc? I mean, we've become big fans. Obviously, we work very closely because it's a very nice structured system. But I mean, you've dealt with the other systems out there. What's your take on Metrc?
Metric's kind of near and dear to my heart since I started in Maryland. That was the system that I learned first. And I will be honest, I haven't learned the other systems as in depth as I know Metrc, but in working with the other systems that we do have, and in communicating with my staff that does deal with them on a day-to-day basis, Metrc, of the three systems that gLeaf uses, Metrc is the most user-friendly. It is the most easy to see your data in and find your data that you're looking for. It's just very simple in a good way. It's, here's your data. This is the information that you need and that, your state requires, or things like that. And it's streamlined. It's very easy to use. And, at this point, they have improved upon it to where there's not, glitches and major outages or anything happening like either they have had in the very beginning, or other systems have had that we've experienced. So I really like Metrc of the systems that I've used. Right now, gLeaf uses Metrc. We use MJ Freeway, and we use Dutchie and or LeafLogix. Depending on how long you've been with them, you might know them by LeafLogix, but they're Dutchie now. So yeah, of those three systems, I would definitely put Metrc as my number one.
That's good to hear. Because again, what we hear, well, look, we're coast to coast. We've got customers in a lot of different states, in non-Metrc states like Virginia, for example. But, it's the same kind of thing. We hear certain folks that just, hem and haw and, hate it, this and that. But part of it is, look, and I refer to it, or we at Outlaw sometimes refer to it as the DMV of cannabis. Look, just like you have to register your car, your registration, license plates, it's a similar thing. It just happens to be a plant. So I always view it as, look, you need some system of record to be keeping track of things, especially with the market moving from, say, the gray market to more of this, legalization that we're all striving for. And really, I think, I've always seen Metrc as kind of like keeping people in line and making sure that everybody has the same set of rules. You know what I mean? If everyone's playing by different rules, it makes it very hard. But if the guy down the street is having to do the same thing you are, yeah, it's painful, but we're all living it together. So anyhow, I was just curious your take. I figured it would be something along that lines.
Yeah, and also to add to that too, for Metrc, it's also very easy to train people how to use it. So our new employees or and things like that we need to show, like, this is how you move plants. This is how you create a package. This is how you do this function. This is how you look up a sale. It's very, like I said earlier, it's very user-friendly and straightforward, so it's very easy to train on, whereas other systems take a little bit more time and a little bit more like, am I doing this right? Am I not? I'm not sure. I hope I don't click on the wrong thing. So,
Meg, it's almost like when you click the ton button. I remember when you had an issue where you submitted was it a harvest that came in tons?
Yeah, that is one aspect of Metrc that is a little makes life a little interesting sometimes. Is it's easy to click the wrong thing, but it's also fairly easy to fix.
No, I'm only saying that kidding you, because I remember early on you and I talking. You're like, I can remember when I actually submitted tons. I'm like, wow, that must have surprised the state of Maryland.
Yeah, that one threw off the system a little bit.
Metric's a fantastic tool, obviously, for compliance and regulatory reasons, but as I'm sure all of our other customers have come to know as well, what it can really be leveraged for is just keeping track of the inventory, because that is money and it needs to be tracked. And we're seeing the companies out there that are doing regular audits, regular inventory. They're the ones who know what's going on. They're the ones who are surviving even as the prices drop in some states, because they're treating the plant like a true asset, like money. And what kind of experience have you had with that? I know you're in charge of compliance, but does your CFO also take a look at all the audit reports and everything that's coming out of Outlaw that we're able to compile from you from Metrc?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm in compliance, so I kind of stay away from the finance numbers because me and math don't always get along. But we do, my team and I, we do, bare minimum in all of our markets. We have to do monthly audit and per regulations, which also allows us to send those monthly audits to our finance teams, who can then in turn use them for, how much merchandise we have available, and kind of help build out all of the finance related data. It's definitely helpful. We do send audit reports to them. We will go into Metrc and get them data. We have trained some of the finance people to be able to pull reports out of Metrc. I don't think we have any of them in the Outlaw backend, but we can send them anything they need whenever they want it. So it definitely has been a helpful tool for helping kind of close the loop between inventory audits and compliance and the finance side of things, and the costs of our product and what we have on hand.
Meagan, do you find yourself, you mentioned the monthly audit requirement, but, obviously we all know that if there's a discrepancy, you might not want to have to deal with 30 days worth of discrepancies. How frequently do you guys find yourselves taking advantage of the tools?
Yeah. So like I said, we're pretty much, most states regulation wise, we're required to do audits once a month. However, depending on the state, we do it a little differently, but essentially our production facilities as far as cultivation, so that would be in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, we do audits almost weekly of different rooms. So we're constantly auditing. You can walk into our facility on any given day and someone's probably doing an audit of a room, at least one of the rooms. So whether it's our veg room, whether it's a flower room, it could be our packaging vault, we're constantly using the tool. I would say it gets used at minimum once a week for at least one or more rooms, depending on how many we're running at the time.
That's awesome. And what's been your experience? Of course, the RFID tags are in those facilities, provided by Metrc, or rather you source them from Metrc. In your experience, when you've seen auditors come in, what does an audit look like for your team? Are you seeing them leverage that same technology? What's been in your experience?
So our MCA has actually gotten their own RF guns that they're able to use to inventory our rooms. I know they tested them out early on in the program, and then their RF guns kind of disappeared for a while, but they bring them back every now and again. We don't see them often, but they will, if they bring those in, they will check a room, and we kind of have to work with them because, their sensitivity may be set too high and they're reading through walls and things like that. So we've run into that with them a couple times, which is just, hey, we use something similar. You just have to turn your sensitivity down. It seems like, and I don't know what they use on their side, but it seems like they may or may not be able to pull the whole room, or maybe the way that theirs shows up, it doesn't tell them, hey, these extra plants, should be in F2, flower room 2, instead of flower room 1 that you're scanning. I don't know what kind of information that their system gives them, but they have done that before with their RF guns. And then but sometimes they will come in and just ask to, they'll come in with a list of a handful of packages. Hey, can you locate package 5674? It should be a blue cheese pre-roll package. And we'll go down in our vaults and see if we can physically find it for them.
Man, it sounds like we need to help the state of Maryland.
Hey, maybe you need to get in touch with them,
I know.
Hone their stuff in a little bit, which if they do come in with a list of, packages or plants to find, the Outlaw gun does come in handy because we can then use that seek and find feature that you guys built in to quickly locate a plant in a room of 800 plants, or a package in our vault that has, over 200 packages in it, and all the boxes look the same. So it's definitely been helpful for that as well.
It sounds like we should at least train the state of Maryland in how to use the handhelds properly.
We'll work on that, Hans. I'll work on that.
Perfect.
We try to help them out a little bit when they come in and have some issues.
I think it sounds like you got better training than they did. Speaking of which, so how has your training experience been with Outlaw as we onboarded you way back when? I know you've been on board a long time, but we also do refreshers for you every once in a while. And I know you've dealt a lot with Bree on the customer service side. How is that compared with some of the other vendors in the industry?
Really, across the board, of the vendors that I've kind of witnessed or been able to deal with, a lot of the vendors that we deal with have actually been they're very responsive. We've had good luck with vendors so far, and I'm going to knock on some wood just so I don't jinx us. But, I very much have appreciated Outlaw's willingness to communicate with us and keep us in the loop with things. And, if you guys have updates that you're doing, you guys are letting us know way ahead of time. And so we know it's coming. And, but yeah, to training our people, I mean, it's pretty straightforward and simple. It's kind of like Metrc. You only have a handful of buttons. Here's how you do a flower inventory. Here's how you do a vault inventory, or here's how you use the seek and find feature, and here's how you upload it. As far as the handheld's concerned, and harvest tablet, same thing. Don't unplug it from the scale. Keep that plugged in, and just keep pushing your button, your 2 buttons that you have to push, and you'll be golden. And it's been very user friendly and very straightforward. And our team, I don't think we've had anyone that's like, I don't understand how to use this thing, it's too complex or anything like that. So it's been a very easy process to train staff how to use it.
We always like to joke internally that we've tried to make our solutions stoner proof. Don't forget who's using the tools in cultivation at dispensary, and again, make our tools accessible and easy to train on for folks. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of turnover in the industry. So, we want to make sure everyone that joins the team, can be onboarded on the tools and take advantage of the efficiencies of them as soon as possible.
I think you've succeeded.
Thank you, Meagan. So if people want to buy gLeaf products, what states are you actually in?
So we operate, like you said in the beginning, we are a multi-state operator. So I'll kind of run through the states that we're in and what we have in those states. People can, look us up online to find specific locations near their area. But I will go from north to south. We'll do that. We have a dispensary in Ohio. We have a grow processor operation in Pennsylvania. In Maryland, we have at least one of each of the licenses. So we have a cultivation license, a processor license, and we also have 2 dispensaries that are, fantastic. By the way, Maryland just went adult use a few days ago. So if anybody's in Maryland, please come visit. We will gladly take care of you. And we also have a vertically integrated facility in Virginia, which was a Virginia requirement. So we have a facility that is cultivation, lab processing, and dispensary all in one. We also have 3 satellite dispensaries spread out in our health service area in Virginia. So if you just look us up, right now for our locations, you can go to gLeaf.com to find us, to find each location, and we have it split up by states. You just pick your state and it'll tell you where you can go.
Awesome. And Bree, do you want to ask our final question?
Yeah. So Meagan, our final question for all of our guests is, we always want to know, who is your favorite outlaw? And it can, of course, be anyone from history, fictional, non-fictional, artist, singer, whoever.
Okay. I went with Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Meagan. It was great having you here, and it's been great working with you all these years. And I'm sure all of us look forward to working with you for many more.
Yeah, it's been great working with you guys. I can't wait to see what the future holds, and I'm holding out for maybe that manifest tool that hopefully is
It's coming.
and
It's coming. Trust me.
It's coming.
It's coming.
No, I very much appreciate you guys, and you guys have made my life a whole lot easier these last couple of years, and my team too. I'm sure they would say the same. So we appreciate you guys, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Meagan.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.